Just go over this real quick. Coach Boyle's going to go here for about a half an hour. We're going to follow up with first-year head coach on our ski team, Andy LeRoy. Following that at approximately 11:50, women's basketball coach, Javari. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the head coach of Colorado basketball, Tad Boyle. Coach, would you please start with an opening statement?
You bet.
Just on the general how things have been going, and then we'll open it up to the floor.
All right, thanks, Troy. Hard to believe it's beginning of year 12 for our staff here, but I'm as excited about Colorado basketball today as I was when I was hired here, May of, I think, 2010. So anyway, I'm excited about this team. We're going to have a young team, a very unusual team in terms of our makeup, with 2 seniors and 10 underclassmen. Obviously, our walk-ons are a big, big part of our program. Ben and Ursek and Will Laughlin are 2 walk-on seniors, but Evan and Eli are the scholarship guys that we're going to rely on a lot this year, those 4 kids. And then, but we've got 10 of our 12 scholarship players that have never played in front of a college crowd, and that's a lot. So obviously the sophomores last year with COVID didn't get a chance to play in front of fans. They're going to get that opportunity this year, thank goodness, and as our freshmen are. So this is going to be a team that's going to be a work in progress. We will not be at our best November the 9th. I'm hopeful we'll be better then than we were today in practice, and the way we've been here the last week or so. This is a talented group of young players that we're going to have to get to grow up quickly, as this season unfolds. So there's going to be some adversity, some headwinds that'll hit us, and that's when we're going to rely on our leadership with Evan and Eli and Bennett and Will to help us get through that. But excited about the program and where we're at, and certainly where we're going.
Yeah, just raise your hand. I'll go ahead and call you for questions. Joe, go ahead.
Coach, I talked to you a few weeks ago, and nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
I thought it was a pretty decent practice, but I'm not one of the coaches. How important is the defensive side of the ball this year? I talked to Eli Parquet a little while ago, and I thought that's kind of his calling card, and I think that's a lot of these guys' calling cards. Everybody wants to score, but, I think the defensive side, especially in tournament play, is so important. How much are you going to emphasize that this year?
Like every year, a lot. I mean, and that's one of the things I talked to our team about today at the end of practice is we have to prepare for games and for nights when the shot's not going in, and it's happened in practice. Young players usually identify with their jump shot, going in or not going in, or scoring the ball or not scoring the ball. And that's why Eli and Evan, who are seniors, who understand that defense is such a big part of what we do, and it's half the game, if not more so, limiting the other team from getting easy baskets and good shots, making them work for everything we get. Again, we've never pitched a shutout here. We're not going to shut anybody out, but we got to prepare to win games on nights when our offense isn't clicking, and because that will happen, and especially with a young team, that will happen. So we've got to be able to rely on that, the defensive side of the ball, and rebounding the basketball at a high level. And our young guys don't have a grasp of that yet, and that's the challenge that I have as a coach right now.
Tad, you mentioned the makeup of this team and 10 guys that haven't really played in front of crowds. Does that put a different emphasis or importance on the preseason games, maybe especially the one at Nebraska?
It does, and that's the reason why we agreed to the Nebraska scrimmage and charity game. They'll return it next year, but for this year's team, we need that. It's also why I didn't schedule a lot of games away from the Coors Event Center, early in November, December, because I know, in the league we're going to get 10 away from our home in league play, and then obviously we got the Virgin Islands tournament. So we'll get enough road experience, but we're going to have to figure out, and that Nebraska game will be a great test to see where we are in that regard. And then the Virgin Islands, and obviously our opening conference game against UCLA and LA, we'll find out there as well.
One of those 10 guys, true freshman Julian Hammond, he probably hasn't played in front of a crowd in a while, but
Right.
He played football in front of huge crowds for those games. Do you think that may have prepared him, and really what have you seen from him in these practices so far?
Yeah, Julian, I think the longer he is here, is getting more and more comfortable, more and more confident. He's done some really nice things. I thought he played really well in Costa Rica on that trip. And one of the things Julian and I have talked about is the fact this is the first time in his career where he's been able to concentrate on basketball, all summer and all fall. And I think that's really going to benefit him this winter. Usually he's on the football field, and that's been great. I mean, and playing football at Cherry Creek, for Dave Logan, and has prepared him well in terms of being a competitor and his toughness level and that. But it's exciting to look at his ceiling as a basketball player now that football's out of the equation. And Julian's going to be a terrific player at Colorado before it's all said and done. Does some really, really nice things.
Jacob was talking to, hey Coach,
Hey.
Was talking to Javari, and he said that Evan's really been on him about keeping his energy up, not getting down on himself. What are your expectations for Javari? Obviously, he had a great NCAA tournament. He could be a big part of scoring the ball. So, what do you sort of see from him?
Yeah, the expectations we have is that he becomes an everyday guy. And last year he didn't have to do that because we had so many seniors with Jariah Horn and Deshaun Schwartz and McKinley Wright and Dallas Walton. He was able to be that freshman that came in and gave us a spark off the bench, and he was really good at that. You look at Jabari's numbers last year relative to the minutes he played, and he's very efficient, and he impacted the game when he was in there. But he got in foul trouble some, and he was a catch and shoot guy. Now we're challenging him to be more of a well-rounded player and impact the game in different ways other than just shooting the ball, from the perimeter. We know he can do that. He's a good shooter. He knows that. We know that. His opponents are going to know that. So how does he impact the game in terms of rebounding and blocking shots and making plays for others and driving closeouts? Those are the kind of things we're talking about Javari. But we need Javari to be an everyday guy, and consistency is going to be his biggest challenge, going from a freshman to a sophomore and going from a role player to a guy that we're counting on night in and night out to produce and perform. He's fully capable of it, without a doubt.
Jack, obviously a lot of new faces this year, but how much do you think the experience of playing in the Pac-12 title game and getting 2 games in the NCAA tournament, how much do you think that kind of bleeds into this year?
I hope it bleeds in. Every year's a different year. It's a different team, and this is a totally different team because we graduated so much production, and we've got so many new faces. We're going to need some of those sophomores to step up without a doubt, and we're going to need some of those freshmen to play minutes without a doubt, and that's really going to be the question mark with this team. So I'm hopeful that if we're able to get back to we know we're going to be in the Pac-12 tournament, but if we're able to get back to that level, it's going to be a long road for these young guys, and they're going to again have to grow up quickly and learn quickly and adapt quickly. But I love our talent level, I really do, and I love our youthful exuberance. But boy, the experience factor is really dwindled with this team when we flip from last year to this year. But again, that's where Evan and Eli, we're going to rely on those guys a lot.
You got Eric, and then we'll go with Justin right after Eric.
Hey, Tad. Obviously, big shoes to fill, the loss of McKinley Wright. Keyshawn, your most experienced returning guy in that position. Do you see him embracing the challenge of filling that role? And I guess just talk about the challenge that does face a guy like
Yeah,
Keyshawn.
no, absolutely. McKinley's loss is a big one, but we also know Keyshawn is fully capable. I thought he did some really good things last year in some tough situations. Keyshawn had the most difficult role on our team last year, backing up McKinley. He didn't know if he was going to play or how much he was going to play. And there was times where McKinley went down with, what we thought was a concussion, and he came back. Keyshawn filled in, I thought, admirably when he was called upon. But he just didn't get the significant minutes that he needed to prove what he can do. He's going to get that this year. So he's capable, much like Jabari's capable. But I don't want to put it all on him. We've got 2 freshman guards in K.J. Simpson and Julian Hammond who are fully capable as well of running the team and playing the point. So I look at it as a 3-headed monster, and some of those guys will play together in the backcourt. We can play with a three-guard lineup, with Eli, Keyshawn, and either KJ or Julian, or KJ, Julian, and Eli at the three. This team's going to have a lot of versatility. We can go big and play Tristan at the three with Javari and Evan. So that's the nice thing about coaching this team. Now it's up to me to figure out, what makes the most sense on a given night and given how guys are playing. But we've got three capable point guards. I don't want to put it all on Keyshawn's shoulders, but Keyshawn is the most experienced and the guy we're expecting probably the most from. But we're going to need KJ and Julian to give us minutes at times this year, without a doubt, and production.
Tad, probably sooner rather than later, Evan Batty is going to be the fourth member of that 2017 recruiting class to eclipse 1,000 points in college. You've got a lot of firepower with this incoming 2021 class. Just how do you feel that you have been recruiting lately here at CU over the last few years? And what is kind of your elevator pitch to kids on why they should play basketball at the University of Colorado?
Well, I think in the landscape of college basketball, with the transfer portal that we're all aware of, it's been well documented. We know it's here to stay. It's not going. The genie's not going back in the bottle, right? So we are a recruit and develop program. You look at the 12 guys on our roster; they were all recruited as freshmen, and they've developed. You look at Eli's development. You look at Evan's development. That's why the sophomores, turning the page from their freshman year to sophomore, their ability to step up, and every kid, has their own kind of path that they have to lead. But when we recruit, we have to evaluate guys that are not going to duck out of this program at the first sign of adversity, because it's going to hit us. And if we got guys looking for the transfer portal, we have not recruited the right guys. And it's something we talk about in recruiting. It's something that if we face head on, we're not shying away from it. It doesn't mean we won't lose anybody to the transfer portal. It just means we want guys that are here that want to be Buffaloes, that want to be Evan Batty and Eli Parquet someday. Because the thing about those two kids is they're Buffs through and through. They own this program. They're what I want all of our freshmen and sophomore to achieve to be. And if we can accomplish that goal with the majority of them, this program will continue to ascend and compete for championships and have success. And that's, I said it again, I opened up, I got the job 11 years ago, and I talked then about becoming a national program and sustaining it. And that's what we've tried to do, and I think we've done it in many respects. But there's still a lot of work to be done. We still need to get that second weekend in the NCAA tournament, and we know that, and not shying away from that. So that's something we talk about as well. It's time to take the next step. Now, this year's team, we'll see. But I think the foundation is laid for the immediate future of Colorado basketball. But I want the future to be now. I don't want the future to be next year. And we're approaching this season, with that goal in mind.
Hey, Mark, and then maybe after Mark.
Dan, you talk about going from a veteran team to a young team, and I'm wondering, the challenge of, making sure those guys know where to go to class, learning your culture, learning the plays and all that. Is the toughest challenge for you as a coach, though, to get a young team to understand the commitment, the intensity that they're about ready to face?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we talked about in practice today. Like, right now, we're 2 weeks into practice. It was practice 15 today. They're thinking, when's the first game? That's on their mind. My thinking is, how are we going to, beat Colorado School of Mines in our first exhibition next week? Because, I'm going to remind these guys, the last time we played the School of Mines in an exhibition game, we were down 4-6 at halftime. We had 2 4-year starters and a first-round draft pick on that team. Our guys have no idea what's in front of them. The old adage, they don't know what they don't know. That's what's happening with this year's team. It's my job to help try to prepare them and do it realistically. I don't want to blow smoke and tell them that, the School of Mines is the best team we're going to play this year, because we know that's not the case. But they're a solid team, and they're going to expose some of our weaknesses, and Nebraska's going to expose some of our weaknesses. How quickly can we shore those things up and get better and learn from the things that happen to us on the floor. Because basketball is such a fluid game, as you guys know. It's up and down and up and down. You don't have a lot of time in the heat of the moment to change a lot of things, other than maybe your offenses or your lineups. But other than that, man, you better learn from day to day. And our sense of urgency and it's not easy being good. And that's the other thing, the message I'm trying to get to our young guys. They think they're good because they're talented and they were highly recruited, but they're going to find out. It's not easy.
So as you mentioned, you're playing School of Mines next week, and you want your men. Your men are really excited to go out and play. But for you, what are you going to be evaluating and looking for in that first game?
I'm just going to be evaluating, are you able to play to the standards that we've set forth? Are you able to do your job? If your job is to rebound, are you rebounding? If your job is to, crash the boards offensively, are you crashing the boards? Or are you executing your part of the play? Are you doing your job? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for guys that want to do their jobs, possession in, possession out. Not once every 3 possessions or every other possession, but every possession. And I've got to find 5 guys that are – I have confidence that Eli and Evan understand that and are going to be able to do that. Not that they're perfect. They're not perfect players, but they understand we need some other guys to get to that point, and that's what I'm going to be looking for in both of our exhibition games.
Ted, a couple weeks into the preseason now, a couple weeks ago until the lights really come on, it sounded like you weren't too happy with today's practice. But at this stage of the preseason, especially with the young guys, is there maybe naturally a mental wall at this stage of the game you kind of have to power through?
There is, and it's my job as a coach to help them power through it. And again, don't lower the standards and don't, we're not going to make excuses, and we're not going to let other people make excuses for us. We're gonna call it like it is, and today's practice was not a good one. Naturally speaking, there's no doubt that every team in America is fighting it now. I think if you talk to any basketball coach, they're fighting it. The players are thinking the same thing. So it's natural, but part of what we do is to fight human nature. And right now I'm fighting human nature for the next 2.5 weeks, without a doubt. I'm fighting it, and I'll be fighting it tomorrow and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when we practice. But that's my job, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to let them off the hook and tell them they're doing great when they're not doing great. But I've also told myself, and I have to remind myself, that I'm going to have a little bit more patience with this year's team. And I have to find a balance between patience and not lowering standards. That's going to be critical for me to do my job as best I can. And patience, especially if you ask my wife, is probably not one of my strong suits. So,
Tad, kind of right on that same note, perhaps you'd agree that from your vantage point as a coach, there's differences coaching a 4-year starter like McKinley Wright as opposed to an incoming freshman like KJ Simpson. But at this point in the preseason, have you kind of figured out the walking the tightrope of wanting to coach those freshmen hard, but not maybe understanding a guy like Julian or KJ as you did 4-year guys like Deshaun or McKinley?
There's no doubt that I don't understand them as well yet, and I think the same is true. I don't think they understand me yet either. I think they're figuring me out as much as I'm figuring them out, and that's just part of the process, that we go. But I've told our freshmen, I've told Julian, I've told KJ, I've told Javon, I've told Lawson. Obviously, Quincy's not playing this year, so he's got a different set of challenges. But those 4 guys, I've told them, I am not going to coach you like a typical freshman. Because last year, let's say Tristan, Neek, Luke, Javari, they were typical freshmen last year because they had a bunch of seniors that I could rely on, and I didn't, they could just be freshmen, and they could play well and not play well, and it didn't really affect what was going to – obviously you want them all to play well when they get their opportunity, but we didn't need those guys like we need some of them. We don't need all 4 of them this year, but we need a couple of them to step up and be ready when their number's called. And that's difficult because they're all coming. Every one of them was the best player on their high school team. So they're going through the transition that all freshmen do. The difference is we need a couple of those guys to step up and play minutes. So I have to coach those guys harder than I coach a normal freshman. So that's a change I have to make, and then they've got to be able to handle it. And whether they can or can't is yet to be seen. But I think they will. I think they're all good kids. They're all very coachable. They all want to play. So we all want the same thing. It's just who's going to be able to up their game, and that's what we're in the process of figuring out.
Your staff, Coach Roan, Coach Ray, I know Coach Greer. I mean, with the young team, I know they're important every year, but I think this year I saw a lot of really great coaching going out there besides you. Talk a little bit about your staff.
Absolutely. My staff is one, and obviously Zach Rubinson is our new member, and he was a manager for us, so he knows the culture of Colorado basketball and what we're preaching every day. But, yeah, Rick Ray, Mike Roan, and Bill Greer have all been head coaches. And they're all really good at what they do. They can teach the game. They know the game. They're good communicators. So this is a year where their job is going to be called upon to teach and coach, again, a little bit just like mine, with a young team. We're going to be doing a lot more of that than we had to last year. We have to get more reps in practice this year than we did last year. When you have seniors who've kind of been there, done that, and been through the war, so to speak, I'm not saying you take your foot off the gas. It just they know, what is down the pike and coming down the pike. Our freshmen don't know, and our sophomores, again, Tristan and Javari, who played a lot, they don't know yet, and Neek and Luke they don't know. So our staff is going to be called upon this year. I think all of us, myself and assistants included. Our trainer, he's dealing with young guys who maybe don't know quite how to fight through the bumps and bruises that they're going to get and they've gotten. Our strength coach, we're all in the same boat. We're all dealing with young guys who we've got to kind of coach through and manage through, a difficult, long college basketball season. But we're no different than everybody else. We all are faced with the same challenge, right?
When the season tickets went out, you included a letter asking fans not to sell their tickets to Kansas fans, and I know we're getting down the road here in about 2 months, but I guess talk about the genesis of why you did that, and what would it mean to you and your team if you were able to limit the amount of Jayhawk fans in the building?
Well, the genesis is, look, I've coached in the building my first year here. We were in the Big 12 before we had kind of established ourselves where there were more Kansas fans in the building that should have been. Then I also coached in a game a few years ago when we beat them, and there were some Kansas fans. There's going to be some Kansas fans here. We know that, but it was 98% Buff fans, and it helped us win a game. And I want our season ticket holders to understand, number one, we're making a commitment to you to allow you to buy extra tickets to this game to make sure that they get in Buffalo's hands, whether it's your friend or neighbor or whatever. And we're asking and begging and pleading and guilting, whatever you want to say, that you don't put them on StubHub and sell them to Jayhawk fans. Now, whether they'll do that or not, we'll see. But one of the most embarrassing moments of my tenure here as a college football fan was when Nebraska had 55% of the stadium when we played them a few years ago. That was embarrassing to me. It was embarrassing to all of us, I think. And we don't want that. I don't want that to happen with the and that, look, it's nothing against Kansas. Look, that's my alma mater, but I'm a Buffalo, and I coach the Buffaloes, and I want the Buffaloes to win that game, and I want the Buffaloes to have a great home court advantage, like I know we play against NIL Fieldhouse when we did 2 years ago and got our hats handed to us. So that's going to be a hard enough game, as a coach and players. I just ask our fans to join in the fight.
Tad, a couple years ago, when you recruited Tristan Da Silva, I remember you saying that you thought you had something special there. Watching him last year play his limited minutes, I fell in love with his game. Talk about his progression and maturation, and how he becomes a more important part of this team.
Oh, absolutely. And look, Javari, we all know how talented he is and what kind of a scorer he is, and he's a terrific player, and we're going to need him to step up. But I always put Tristan right in there with Javari because he is a guy who can play multiple positions offensively. He can guard multiple positions defensively. He's got a great pace about him. We always talk to our guys about what can you do to affect the game and help your team win when you're not scoring the ball, Tristan Da Silva can do a lot of things. You know, handling the ball, passing the ball. We're challenging him every day to rebound the ball stronger and tougher. He can put the ball on the floor. He plays with a great pace and a great, you know, he doesn't get sped up. And Tristan is the guy, to me, nobody talks about that has a chance to have as good a year as anybody on our team this year. We're going to need him to be on the floor as much as possible. And he's playing he's had a great summer. You know, he played with the national team in Germany for a few weeks when he was back home. He had a great 6-week stint with Coach Engelhardt through April and May, where he was really did a good job in the weight room. He's gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger. That needs to continue to develop. But he's going to be a big part of this year's team, Mark. So, and he's a guy nobody talks about. You know, it's funny. I get asked about a lot of people, and Nick Clifford and Tristan Da Silva are two guys, and maybe even Luke O'Brien a little bit, that people are maybe sleeping on.
Hey, Dad.
Hey there.
Over these 11 years, we've done this many times. You're always very introspective about your process of learning to coach. What did you learn from the end of last season in your coaching style and how to approach these things?
Well, I think I try to get better every year as a coach. You know, obviously we've always known how important matchups are in the NCAA tournament. That was pretty evident, you know, when we went from playing Georgetown to playing Florida State, two totally different styles, and you know, and one we had really good success with, and the other one we didn't. You know, we were very McKinley Wright dominant last year, and have been the last 4 years, which for good reason. He was a heck of a player and made unbelievable plays and won a lot of games. Helped the University of Colorado win a lot of games. So. This year's team is going to be different because we're going to be a little bit more balanced, I think, and we've got a lot of weapons that can really hurt people offensively. So I think where we're going to miss McKinley as much is on the defensive end. But so I would say I learned that. I also learned that, you know, look, we made it back to the Pac-12 championship game for the first time since we'd won it, you know, and we came up short against a, you know, retrospectively, a team, Oregon State, that was playing really, really well. We knew that. We had beaten them in Corvallis a few weeks earlier. But I think I learned that, you know, you got to have your players ready to go, you know, every night. We had such an emotional win against USC in the semifinals. I don't think I did as good a job as I could have done getting our team emotionally ready for that Oregon State game in such a quick turnaround. But we came up a little bit short. I mean, we still had a good look. I still remember Jariah Horn's, you know, three that was, you know, wide open looking. If that thing goes in, it's maybe a different outcome, and we're cutting down the nets. But it didn't happen. So you don't get those opportunities very often. So when you get them, you better make the most of them. So you just continue to learn as a coach, and hopefully I'm still doing that.
Okay, we're going to go Jacob, Tyler, and we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions after that. Jacob, go ahead.
In your eyes, what is going to make Evan, you know, different than last year where he was just supporting McKinley? This year he's probably going to, you know, lead the team in a lot of categories, right? I mean, so what is his next step in turning himself into like a Pac-12 player of the year?
Yeah, I think Evan's always been. He's such a good teammate. You know, he's a guy that would rather pass than shoot sometimes. But we're going to need Evan to be an aggressive scorer. Not that he has to get 25 a night, but you know, we need him to be a really force down low. And he's really worked on his perimeter shot, and he can put the ball on the floor for a guy his size. He's got a very unique skill set for his body type. And so we want Evan to be an aggressive offensive player. We know how good he is defensively in the low post, and he's got great feet. He can switch on ball screens. But I think aggressiveness, we don't have to ask Javari to be more aggressive because Javari is aggressive by nature. Evan needs to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. Tristan needs to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. But I think Evan's going to have a breakout year. I'm not saying the numbers need to go off the chart, but we need him to be a little bit more of a scorer for us with those guys leaving.
Tad, in terms of the development of your young freshmen, KJ and Julian, how valuable is it to have a guy like Elijah not just for your team as a whole, but in getting those guys along, because it's likely they're not going to face a tougher defender from an opponent standpoint than they will face in Elijah in practice.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've kind of really challenged Eli. You got the perimeter guys. Get them right. Talk to them, encourage them, challenge them, go at them every day, and let them know what the standard is. I've asked Evan to do the same thing with our bigs. Lawson. I mean, Evan Batty, what he's done to help Lawson Lovering grow and compete and really get better. I mean, Lawson is defensively as a post guy. He's as good as we've had here. I mean, he really is, and a lot of that is because he sees what Evan does every day. But Lawson's 7 foot tall. He's got great feet and great length, and Evan's 6'8", and he's not as long. But Lawson's such a quick learner, so I want Evan to really take those bigs kind of and challenge Javari and Tristan and Lawson, and I want Eli to do the same thing with all the perimeter guys. And that's why leadership is so important to this team, and we've got 2 guys that are really capable.
Yeah, you have a final question out there from anybody? Okay, Jacob, go ahead.
What did you think when Javari broke the backboard in Costa Rica?
I thought, well, the game's over, and I hope we can play the next night, because that was the 3rd game in 4 games. But yeah, that was a great trip. I think that experience really helped Javari. We talk all the time. One of the biggest challenges I have in coaching in 2021 is the effect that social media has on our players and their mental makeup and how the world looks at them and feels about them. Because it used to be just don't pick up the paper if you don't want to hear it. Now it's don't pick up your phone. Well, guess what? Everybody picks up their phone. So Javari experienced maybe some negative feedback on that, and I think it was an eye-opener for him, and I'm glad it happened in the summer in Costa Rica, and something he can learn from and the rest of our players can learn from, because I do think as this season goes on, when things don't go well, the public is going to let our players know about it. That's just the nature of the world we live in, which is unfortunate, and the players have to be able to handle that and navigate that world, and I wish they would do what I do, which is you don't even look at it, but I know that's not the case. So if you're going to look at it, you better be able to handle it. So that's another challenge we're going to have as this season unfolds.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Just a reminder, Coach Leroy from the ski team will be up here momentarily, and then we'll have lunch at 12:20.
Denver, where he won 6 titles in 15 years. When he was here, he was an Olympian, national champion, all that good stuff. So, kind of the big event in skiing was ski ball last week. So, if you want to touch on that, kind of what it means and what you guys are doing right now.
Well, our annual ski ball took place this past Friday, and although COVID kept us from doing an in-person one last year, which would have been our 50th, this was our 50th, and we'll actually tally the numbers this evening, but it was hugely successful, not just for the awards that we gave out, the Mountain of Honors, Dale Pearson and Lee Sevenson, and Richard Rokos got a chance to say thank you to all the people that had been supporting him and his program over the last 31 years. And at the end of the day, the money that we raised quite possibly could have been twice as much is our very best skee ball in history. So we'll tally those numbers tonight, but it was awesome, and so glad that we got it done in time because the team will be skiing this Saturday in Copper. It's time to transition to snow, so we're excited for the next step. We're off to a good start.
So what's the challenge of replacing a legend while at the same time, I'm sure, trying to put your own stamp on the program?
I'm not sure I've come across many challenges quite yet, to be honest. It's been more of a breath of fresh air here to be at CU and to see all the support. I'm spending most of my time trying to learn the history of this program and learn from some of those mistakes that have been made in the past. Spent a lot of time with Richie. He's actually signed on to be our volunteer assistant coach for this coming season. So he's out at training. He's with us almost all the time, and we're excited to charge forward, use his expertise, use the experience that he has over the years, trying to make this program better. But challenges, I haven't come across too many yet. It's a good program. It's been run well for a long time.
Just generally, how would you describe your coaching style, and what do you look for in your skiers?
I think my coaching style is probably a little bit more technical than most other coaches. I think I was raised by a lot of coaches that instilled that in me, instilled the basic movements and those patterns, and spent a lot of time trying to show the importance of those. And at the end of the day, those are the movements and the patterns that we need to kind of instill in these athletes. They've come with a lot of great skill sets from their younger programs, and now if we can put those all together along with the fact that they've become so bigger, stronger, faster, smarter, I think we'll be in good shape. But I think my coaching style kind of breaks down the fundamentals more than anything, and hopefully I can instill that with the athletes. We had a chalk talk this morning that I'm hopeful will translate onto the first days of snow this week.
I know one of the most important things that Richard created here was keeping the Alpine and the Nordic teams together in all of their trainings. Is that something that you're continuing, and why do you think that that's so important here that we don't really see in other programs?
I think when we look at our sport, we're an individual sport in all respects of all other levels until college, and college does then combine for the first time and the only time a team score between men and women, Alpine and Nordic. So I think Richard's right on with the fact that that's got to be stressed. It's got to be shown as an importance and celebrated and practiced as long and as often as possible. We had a number of the same team building activities that we'd done in the past. We did an orienteering day out at Richard Rokos' house. We did the Green Mountain time trial this past weekend on top of the Buff Classic bicycle ride. We took the entire team and went and rode bikes up to the top of Rollins Pass. So we've done as many of those activities as possible to just get them familiar. They all know each other, but I think at the end of the day, when you crunch the scores of the NCAA championship, the winner usually separates themselves by about one place by every person in every race. So if all of our athletes can be only one place faster, that's about what it takes to win a title. So showing your support for the other guys may push them to just that one more place when it comes to matter.
With Magnus back, first of all, just how valuable is he to your team? And second, is it a challenge to push him to get even better when he's already the National Skier of the Year, won all these awards?
That's hard for me to speak of. He's training with the Nordic team, so I don't see him near as often as I'd like to, but he just seems like a regular athlete on our team. You wouldn't know that he's had the success that he had this last year and that he's maybe in the shape he is because he just shows up, he puts on a smile, and he goes to work. We see him in and out of the ski building. You wouldn't know anything different between him and a walk-on. So I think he's not showing that confidence that maybe you would think from somebody that has had that success, but for sure it's going to play out when they get on the snow. If somebody even comes close to them, they're going to feel pretty good about their time and the shape that they're in. So I'm looking forward to seeing it in competitions, but so far training, haven't quite had the chance.
How important would you say the conditioning aspect of your sport is? Because to me, just having skied myself, 30 minutes, I'm starting to feel it, I can only imagine at that level, conditioning would probably play a huge part, and also for injury prevention, because, those guys are going down, they're doing some incredible things, both men and women, Can you talk to me about, there's kind of a danger aspect to it as well, so where are you at with as far as the injuries go and how you prevent them through training and how you condition the athletes so they can perform their best on ski day?
For sure the conditioning is a huge part of our sport. And I think if you really look at the level of the best college skiers, they're training year-round. When they finished here in May, it wasn't a finishing. They were in the middle of a progression, strength and power and endurance, a little bit more aerobic during that time of the year, and it'll transition more towards an explosive anaerobic by this time of the year, but there's really no time off. These athletes have had a plan for their skiing and their conditioning throughout the whole summer. None of them have taken the time off, so they're showing up here at school not unprepared for the weight room. It was as if they lifted back at home the day before they hopped on the plane and got here, so there isn't a break in our sport, not at this level, and the athletes are showing up here ready to go, and getting on snow this next week is more or less a transition into the ski shape that you look for in the year versus the weight room shape. But we'll still be in the weight room a day or two a week as we go through the fall, and about a day or two a week as we go through the winter. But conditioning, it's a year-round thing. There's no time off at this level. And as far as the injuries, we've had a couple, unfortunately. There have been, lost a shoulder here and there. Some guys have dislocated a shoulder. We've had some shin splints, some rolled ankles, but most of those things are being taken care of and monitored and helped with our training staff. And I fully expect that we'll get on snow, we'll be healthy and ready to fire by the time, January comes for our first invitationals, and hopefully we can keep that through to the championship. But as you say, warming up and loosening those soft tissue muscles before we get going, that's important every single day. So when we drive out of the ski building at 6 a.m. and we're at the top of Eldora at 6:40, those athletes are then running around the parking lot with bands and tying those to the vans and jumping back and forth, plyometrics, core exercises before they even get on snow. So it's game time once that lift starts running for them. And we have to do our best to limit those injuries. Those are the killers, and they're pretty inherent in our sport regardless of your shape or your preparation. It just happens, so knock on wood.
That's incredible. All right. Coach, when you were first introduced, I think we talked about, because of the tight ski community, you already knew a lot of these athletes. So I'm curious, as you've gone through it now, how much do you feel like that's helped as you've gone through this process, the transition, and how much have you enjoyed kind of furthering that and get to know them even better?
Yeah, I knew most of them before, but I think the relationship just started over completely with all of them. Some of them I turned down to go to DU for different reasons, that maybe the school was a better fit or I had somebody else as a better fit at Denver. But I think our relationships started completely over after the press conference that I had with you. Here it was meeting every one of the athletes and spending a couple hours getting to know them, and different from the time when I'm recruiting an athlete and I'm giving them an offer to come here. I explained to most of them I've inherited them. They were given this decision to join the program by somebody else, and I want to live up to that commitment that Colorado had made to them, but at the same time, it's got to be about a relationship that I have with them. So very individual, very personal, and something that I've really enjoyed doing from a different standpoint than I ever had before, where those conversations happened before I made the offer. Now they're from an inherited factor, which has been fun too. So I think it's been positive for them, and I think it's been positive for my side to do it both ways. But yeah, we're in good shape. We're ready to go, and we have a couple more athletes that will likely be joining us in January.
Do you have any of your athletes training for Beijing right now? And if so, what's the challenge of training during Olympic season?
There are a couple that are going to be in Beijing, I believe. We've got one girl that's Polish on our team, an incoming freshman. She's actually over in Seoul in Austria right now, training for the opening World Cup there this next weekend. She's likely to go. She was racing in the World Championships last year. And then we've got a couple athletes that took this year off from CU, Cassidy Gray and Steph Fleck, that are back with their national team in Canada, hopeful to race in Beijing. Current athletes like Philip Forchek is hopeful to make his appearance there. We'll see if some of the Nordic athletes can make it. Veronica Coletta took an extra class over the summer to get some extra training here in the fall, and hopefully she can show up there, maybe Magnus. But we'll see. It's a little ways away, but for sure we're aware of all of the criteria for all of the national teams, and hopeful they can punch it through. That the Olympics in Beijing fit really well into our collegiate schedule. They wouldn't miss very many races. They could qualify for the championship before Beijing, go to Beijing, and return to CU and compete with us at the championship. So fingers crossed we have that type of success. I believe there will be a number of them that make it, but hopefully we can progress more towards medals than just making it in the years to come.
Pretty simple and general question. So you're going to Copper this weekend. What do the snowpack conditions look like up there, and how much snow did they get throughout the week?
Not aware of that. If they say open, I'm hoping for just like 4 or 5 inches of ice. That's about all we're looking for. So if it's anything more than that or softer than that, we'll hopefully pack it down. But they've had some great snow conditions. Obviously last week it was real cold, and they were able to blow snow, and hopefully they blew it. as thin and as wet as possible, because we just don't need that much. We need a sheet of ice, fast and as hard as it can get, and if we can stick a gate into the ground without hitting dirt, then more the merrier. But getting going this weekend will be, it'll be nice to get out there, and I think it's likely only the very, very top of Copperopolis, so we'll have to upload the Super B, ski up at the top, and then download the Super B back to the bottom, because I don't think they're skiing top to bottom. So we're excited to get out there. We'll be staying there on Saturday night, and with the proceeds from the skee ball that was so successful, it should allow us to do this weekend after weekend into the opening NORAMs November 16 through 20. So we're excited for this. We're going to have some success early season, hopefully. It's nice when we get going here this early, and even Eldora was, I hate to put this on the news, but Eldora was hoping to try and open weeks before they normally would. So we'll see if the conditions continue to stay cold up there and they're able to blow snow, and hopefully we can get up there. I don't want to give an early start date for Eldora and change around what they're doing on the news, but hopefully it happens.
Anything else for Andy? All right, thanks, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. See you on snow.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, you good? Yes, sir. All right. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Last one at the table, head coach Javari Payne entering her 6th season in Colorado. Team's coming off last season's WNIT appearance, and coach, we'll just start with your kind of thoughts on how practice is going and outlook, and then we'll open it up.
Okay, awesome. Well, it's wonderful to see all of you. Thank you for being here. And sitting here at the table, it actually starts to feel more like basketball season. So we're excited to have kicked off the season with practice a couple of weeks ago. We have a very veteran ball club, although, we have some people coming off injury and things like that. We feel really good about, who we have back and what we were able to accomplish last year. We definitely felt like, although we had a good season and it was pretty tumultuous with COVID, and although testing and some cancellations and things like that, we felt like we laid a solid foundation for what we're capable of this year. And so we're excited for the season. We have, I think, a week before a closed scrimmage and 9 days before an exhibition game after that, and then we'll be off to the races. So thank you for being here.
I'm an old Army point guard, and the one thing I love about the women's game is the ball moves, and the ball moves. And I thought there was some big wins. I thought that there was progress last year. I really saw this team starting. I'm a Seal Berry guy, so I'm used to excellent women's basketball, and I think it's close. I mean, will you talk about some of the bigger wins from last year and that confidence? Because I saw that confidence build throughout the year. Do you think that that's going to carry over to this year?
Yeah, I definitely think, that confidence carries over. I also think when you've established a culture of daily effort and daily excellence, that's where your confidence comes from. It's not from having a superstar back or, a bunch of veterans back. It's about what do we accomplish every single day. And we're still working to establish that. We have a lot of veterans. We also have new players, that are learning how to train, how to compete, how to make sure that that's a daily habit. But we did have some big wins. I expect us to have more big wins this year, and know that we're capable of a lot.
Your first 3 years here, I mean, we knew he was going to play point guard for about 38 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But now you've got several who are very capable. What's that competition look like right now with Jalen and Sela and Kendall and just everybody that's in that competition?
Yeah, it's a lot of competition. In fact, we were just meeting with Sela. We're having some individual meetings and talking about just the versatility of some of those players. Sela is one that she's playing well at the 1. She also is playing really well at the 2. She also is playing really well at the 3. So it's not, we're just trying to figure out, who can be versatile, who can play different positions, who's playing well, what are we missing, who gives what, who can provide what we're missing. So the competition is stiff at the 1, but I also expect some of those point guards to be able to move around and play different positions.
Kind of to piggyback on that, the versatility and maybe depth of this team, are you going to maybe be able to do some things lineup-wise, go smaller, go bigger, things like that maybe you weren't able to do in previous seasons?
Yeah, I mean, bigger's always better, for us. We like to play long and, but we also have some really, really talented, players that aren't super long, and it'd be crazy not to have them on the floor. So yes, we have had some players that are playing different positions. Kylie Blackston, is playing multiple positions on the floor right now and is looking really good. Maybe at the 4 a little bit more than the 3, like she did last year. So there's people that are swinging. We're continuing to work to figure out what's the best lineup for us. Do we have different types of lineups? Because you can go big and kind of slow it down, grind it out in the half court. You also can go smaller and faster and play really, really fast. So having depth, having some versatility, again, having veterans sort of impacts all of those decisions.
Touching on one of those guards, Kendall Wetta, what have you seen from her so far? And also, how crucial was it to secure one of the best recruits from Colorado?
Yeah, we always want to recruit the best players in the state of Colorado to stay home. Players that can help us win a championship need to come to Colorado and be Buffs. She certainly is that player. And so Kendall, just as a young woman, embodies everything that we value. As a coaching staff, we want players that are hardworking, tough, resilient. They excel in the classroom. They excel in their community. They work as hard as they possibly can, and that is Kendall in a nutshell. She also is a really talented basketball player, so the combination of the two is really great. She's playing really well. We worked on press attacks yesterday. She just diced up, Coach T tried to put in a press, and she just diced it up, on her own, and she's playing really well and will be an impactful player.
Frida obviously had a really good freshman season last year.
Yeah.
A few games where she would not score, but then she'd come back and score like 20.
Yeah.
Is consistency the next step for her, or what's kind of the next step for her as a sophomore?
Yeah, I think consistency, she actually was, with the exception of those 4 games, and they were back-to-back, and then, like you said, went for 20, and back-to-back. Other than that, she had a really great year and was really consistent. But yeah, for Frida, the biggest thing is getting healthy. She struggles with her health a little bit. And so for us, trying to limit the impact of practice on her body, making sure that, our staff is able to get her in a place where she feels really good, is going to be the biggest key to Frida's success. But she's playing really well. She looks fantastic. We had a close scrimmage last Saturday. She led us in scoring. She's doing really well.
What have you seen out of Maya Hollingshead this summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's same old Maya. Like, she had a really great year last year, and she also is having a really great year in practice so far this year. We're seeing more vocal presence from Maya, which we've been asking her to do, since maybe her junior year. As a 5th-year senior, someone who's actually played all 4 years and been very impactful, we need her to coach and be able to help our young players or our new players, and she's doing a really good job of that. I can always see her talking to someone on the sideline, and they're not just shooting the stuff. She's actually coaching them, helping them. They go to her when they have questions, offensively or defensively, and that's a huge key for us. But she looks great.
Looking a little bit more big picture, what does it say about the strength of the conference when a team like Stanford wins the national championship, and then, of course, you beat Stanford last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think for years now, the Pac-12 has been the #1 women's basketball team in the country, and this year will be no different. I think we've had 5 teams in the Sweet 16 for, 6 of the last 8 years or something. And so it is a very good conference, top to bottom. I think it's really neat when the 7th place team can, be an NCAA tournament team consistently. And it's just everyone's really good. There's years where you're like, oh man, we've got veterans and we feel really good about our team. Well, so does everyone else, and not only that, but they've added 3 5-star All-Americans. And so it is tough. No matter who you play, where you play in the Pac-12, it's going to be a tough matchup. And but we chose that. Everyone that came to Colorado chose that and wanted to play in the best league in the country, wanted to be challenged day in, day out. And so we're getting what we asked for.
You've got a lot of young women on your team that have played a lot of basketball now. But what's the basketball IQ of this team right now, and how important is having high basketball IQ when you play in the Pac-12?
Yeah, it's really important. That's something that's different about the Pac-12 or maybe unique is that each night can be a totally different look. You could be at Arizona State where they're just going to grind it out and be really physical and slow the game down and, really just try to grind it out in the half court. And then the 2 nights later, you can be at Arizona where they're just trying to fly in transition and, be really aggressive defensively, so that they're different looks every night, and you have to have an elevated IQ in order to be able to make those adjustments from one night to the next night. But yeah, our IQ is something that we're constantly, trying to develop. And, we're limited in some ways in the amount of time that we can spend with our players and have to be really intentional about what we do with our time. So if we only get X amount of hours, but they really need the film work, well, we have to get the film work in, but then we lost out on some practice time. And so really, it's important to be very structured in how we do that. But I think having a handful of point guards on the team definitely helps. And having a handful of veterans who can continue to coach each other and, hold us to a higher level of expectation, I think also helps with that.
Jalen Sherrod, just how is she feeling physically, and what do you think she kind of took away from, being sidelined the last couple months? Someone asked Jalen that at Media Day, what did you learn, when you were on the sidelines for the second half of season? And her response was that she learned how resilient her teammates are, and she was very proud of them for, how they stepped up and how they, accomplished so much, as a ball club and things like that. So that's what I would say she learned. But she's feeling great. Like she's, fast and strong and, doing really well.
Anything else for Coach? Right. You're in your 6th season here.
Yeah.
How have you developed as a coach, being in the Pac-12 for now 5 seasons?
Yeah, I think from a very young age as a coach, I learned that preparation is the key to everything. And so I have always felt that there cannot be a staff, in our league or country that works any harder than we do. Which is why I always have these dark circles. But no, I think we've always prided ourselves on being, harder working than anyone else. The ability to reach out when you need help is something that I've grown a lot in. If I don't understand something or if, what we're doing isn't working, don't just kind of stew about it and try to figure it out on your own, but reach out to others, that can help you that have been here. And so I have mentors that help me with that. And I think that's probably the biggest area that I've grown.
Speaking of mentors, I imagine Coach Boyle and you have a pretty decent relationship. He's been here forever. I mean, how much of a sounding board is he, and how much has he helped you over your time here?
Yeah, Tad is wonderful, and he and his entire staff are great to work with. Their office is right across the hall from us, and we work really, really well together. Tad is someone who has always had an open door for me. If there's anything, from anything, roster management, staff management, how do you go about this? How have you ever seen this before? I sneak into their practices all the time. I have a document on my computer that's called Tad Boyle Zone Offense, and it's just notes that I took watching him coach his team. So I know Tad is, he's there to pick up the phone anytime I need anything or need advice, and I've certainly appreciated that because he's so successful and just a really great person.
Just one more for me, but the 2 transfers from Washington, I mean, obviously that was a disappointing game in the Pac-12 tournament for you.
Yeah.
And they were both instrumental in that victory. Now you add them to your team. What have you seen them bring to the table now that you guys have been in practice?
Yeah, the biggest thing I think those two bring, and we don't talk about that game, just so you know. We would joke about it. They'd say something, nope, we don't talk about it. But the biggest thing those two have brought, besides talent and experience, is just they have an incredible spirit. So if you ever come to a practice of ours or watch clips or watch them play, you'll see that their spirit is just awesome. They're upbeat, they're positive, they're happy, they're joyful, they they work hard, but they don't take themselves too seriously. You can coach them really hard, and they have the right mindset of like, okay, I got you. They don't complain or pout, or they're just right where they need to be mentally. Tamia is really, really talented. I mean, she's very gifted with the ball. She's shooting a very, very high percentage right now from the floor in live segments, can play a variety of positions, and I think she appreciates that we're kind of letting her loose. Like, I need you to look to score the ball, and she's able to do that. And Quay brings presence and experience, and I think in all live segments this year, she's number 2 on the team in rebounding, and we want her to score the ball more. I met with her yesterday and said, you can't be passing up. If you have 2 feet in the paint, you need to score. And she said, well, I'm not used to having, so many weapons on the floor. Why wouldn't I pass it to Frida or Maya or somebody else? And so really trying to get her to like train her mind of I'm also, a threat. But they're wonderful. I mean, everybody loves them, and you'll see what I'm talking about when you watch them play.
Another freshman I was kind of curious about, Kennedy Taylor.
Yeah.
Obviously, she accomplished a lot in Kansas.
Yeah.
What do you kind of expect from her in her freshman season?
Yeah, KT is what we call her. Yeah. So KT is great. She is drinking out of a fire hydrant, for the last couple months, because college basketball is so much just more. It's more weightlifting. It's more focus on nutrition. It's moving faster. It's more things I have to remember. It's a lot. And but she is handling it very, very well. She's very coachable. She listens. She listens to her teammates. She looks to her veteran teammates, for advice. And she also has a great spirit. Like, she just smiles and, comes every day with a great attitude, and high percentage finisher. Like I think she's maybe second or maybe third on the team in rebounding right now in live segments. And so she also is finding a way to impact the floor. But I think KT in the long run is going to have a really great career here.
Anything else for Coach?
All right, thanks, guys.